cutting off Canadian energy to the United States if Trump follows through with his threat. Warning, quote, the Americans are going to feel the pain as well.
It's the last thing I want to do. I want to sell more electricity, more power.
Canada just cut the oil and power supply to the US, leaving Trump absolutely speechless. But hey, that's what happens when you poke the bear with nonsense tariffs. You get slapped back harder.
The border's not our responsibility.
Trump thought squeezing Canada would protect American jobs, but now the only thing getting protected is the inflation line.
Premier, when it comes to crude oil, if you go bigger, you're looking at Canadian exports to the U.S. 60% of America's total oil imports come from Canada.
Now it's officially a disaster, because for decades, the U.S. has relied on Canada's 3.8 million barrels of oil per day, and nearly all of its electricity imports from the north to keep things running smoothly.
But that's a tool that we have in our toolbox. We power over 1.5 million homes in Michigan and counties in Michigan and New York State and Wisconsin. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to sell more energy to the U.S. I want to sell more critical minerals to the U.S.
But after years of pushing tariffs, political jabs, and acting like Canada's energy supply was just an unlimited free sample, the tables have turned. Canada just played its most dangerous card yet, and now New York, Minnesota, and Michigan are about to learn what an actual energy crisis looks like. This isn't just about higher power bills. This is blackouts, factory shutdowns, and gas stations running dry faster than a teenager's first paycheck.
Again, we're the closest trading partner, closest allies. We do $1.3 trillion of two-way trade. That's more than Japan, China, UK, and France combined. I just feel we aren't the enemy.
In New York, things are about to get real ugly. A quarter of the state's electricity comes straight from Canada, and if that supply suddenly vanishes, it's not just a minor inconvenience, it's chaos. Wall Street, subway systems, hospitals, businesses, all of it could be thrown into disarray.
You specifically threatened to turn off the lights to 1.5 million Americans. And I say that just because if you're specifically talking about electricity coming into the U.S. from Canada.
And if this happens in the middle of a brutal winter storm or a summer heat wave, energy demand will explode and the grid simply won't be able to keep up. Blackouts will hit, and suddenly, New Yorkers will be swapping their overpriced avocado toasts for emergency candles and battery packs. But as bad as that sounds, Minnesota and Michigan are in an even deeper hole. These states rely on Canada for up to 95% of their imported electricity, which isn't just a problem, it's a full-scale catastrophe.
You're looking at Canadian exports to the U.S. 60% of America's total oil imports come from Canada. So do you want to go bigger in this, if these tariffs are going to go through?
Picture entire factories grinding to a halt, hospitals running on backup generators that weren't meant for long-term survival, and even the most basic things, streetlights, heating systems, traffic signals, just disappearing into darkness. The U.S. can scramble for backup options all it wants, but here's the brutal truth. There is no quick fix. The grid isn't built to handle this kind of shock, and unless someone pulls a magic power plant out of thin air, things are going downhill fast.
Well, we ship down 4.3 million barrels every single day. If there was a tariff on that, that would increase gas by $1 a gallon. That wouldn't go over very well.
And if you thought the power crisis was bad, wait till you hear about oil. Canada isn't just some side supplier, it's the US's #1 source of crude oil, providing more than half of all imports. Cutting that off is like yanking the battery out of a running car. You don't just slow down, you completely stall.
That wouldn't go over very well. And, both sides of the border are going to feel the pain. We rely on each other.
Gas prices? Forget about slight increases, they'll jump by at least 51 cents per gallon overnight. For truck drivers, that's an extra $50 to $100 per refuel per truck. And guess what? Everything you buy moves on a truck. So say hello to skyrocketing shipping costs, expensive groceries, and flight tickets that make first class feel like an actual life investment.
I want to work with the U.S. I love the American people. I spent 20 years of my life there in Chicago, in our Chicago facility in New Jersey. I love Americans. I love the U.S. And we're so much stronger together.
And let's not even start on manufacturing. The Midwest is packed with refineries that are built specifically for processing Canadian crude. Take that away, and they can't just flip a switch and start using a different type of oil overnight. Reconfiguring takes months, and in the meantime, gas stations start running dry, supply chains crumble, and the U.S. economy takes a hit so hard it might just develop a permanent limp.
Let's onshore these products from China and create more American and Canadian.
That's not just a bump in gas prices, that's a full-scale energy crisis. The Keystone XL and Enbridge Line 5 pipelines, which have fueled the Midwest, Gulf Coast, and Northeast for years, are now at the center of a disaster. Without them, gas stations are about to run dry, fuel prices are going to explode, and entire industries will come to a screeching halt. Truckers will be the first to feel it. 100 more per refuel means everything they haul gets pricier. Food, clothes, electronics. If it moves, it costs more. And then there's the airline industry, which relies on fuel for 30 to 40% of operating costs.
Trump had posted, he referred again to Canada as a state. He referred again to Prime Minister Trudeau as a governor. It's not the first time. He had posted that AI-generated image of himself standing next to the Canadian flag.
If oil vanishes overnight, flights won't just get expensive, they'll become a luxury. Meanwhile, refineries built to process Canadian crude can't just swap in a new supply overnight. Shutting them down means months of shortages, and once fuel disappears, so does everything America depends on. This isn't a warning, it's already happening. Right now, America's factories are bracing for impact because more than $100 billion in auto parts cross the US-Canada border every single year, and that supply chain is about to collapse. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's the foundation of America's entire car industry crumbling in real time. Ford, General Motors, and Tesla heavily rely on Canadian steel, aluminum, and lithium to keep their production lines moving. And if Canada pulls the plug on raw material exports, those assembly lines won't just slow down. They'll completely shut down.
Can we just take a step back? I know in some of this he's sort of making a joke, but he's doing it again and again and again. And obviously, it is demeaning. I mean, how do you respond to that he keeps referring to Canada as a state and the leader of your country as a governor?
And when that happens, factory workers in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania will be the first to suffer. These jobs don't exist without Canadian materials, and the second that supply dries up, mass layoffs become unavoidable. And let's not pretend this is just about the workers. Car buyers are about to get absolutely wrecked. The average price of a new car is already a staggering $47,000, and if steel and aluminum supplies vanish, prices could skyrocket by another $8,000 to $10,000 overnight. Dealerships won't just have limited inventory, they'll be selling basic sedans at luxury prices.
We are their number one trading partner, number one ally in the entire world. The supply chains are so integrated.
Even the used car market, which saw 30 to 40% price hikes during the COVID supply chain crisis, is about to spiral into madness again. And if you thought electric vehicles would be a safe bet, think again, because 76% of the cobalt used in EV batteries comes from Canada. No cobalt, no batteries, no batteries, no Teslas, no Ford Lightnings, no Chevy Bolts. The entire US push for zero-emission vehicles by 2035. Done. And if the manufacturing sector wasn't already on life support, America's grocery stores are about to turn into a battlefield. Canada supplies $25 billion in agricultural products to the US every year. Wheat, pork, maple syrup, grains, the essentials that keep grocery stores stocked and prices stable. If that supply suddenly disappears, food prices will skyrocket like never before.
Americans lose, Canadians lose, and that's the problem. And Mexico has to make a decision. You're either with Beijing or you're with Washington. I'll tell you what Canadians are with, they're with Washington.
The average U.S. household already spends over $7,000 a year on groceries, but that number is about to climb by hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. Wheat shortages mean bread, pasta, and cereal prices exploding. Pork shortages make bacon and sausages nearly unaffordable, and maple syrup? It's about to become a luxury item.
You know, he has a sense of humor, but I'm more concerned about the trade, making sure that we secure trade on both sides of the border. And this is pretty simple. The president has asked to secure our border. I agree with him 1,000.
But it's not just about what the U.S. buys from Canada. It's also about what Canada buys from the U.S.-Canada imports $20 billion worth of American produce, dairy, and processed foods. And if trade tensions escalate, that revenue stream vanishes. Farmers in Iowa, Illinois, and Kansas, already struggling with inflation and rising costs, will see their incomes plummet by 10 to 15% instantly. Tons of food will go unsold, forcing farmers to either take massive losses or raise prices to make up for it. Grocery stores will be forced to find new, more expensive suppliers, and at the end of the day, American families will be left paying the price. And that's the real disaster. This trade war isn't just about oil, auto parts, or food. It's an economic crisis that's spinning out of control, and if you want to stay updated, hit subscribe.